Please, what is that? Don't tell me. It's all in the Reflexes.
You're listening to All in the Reflexes, an unrepentant vivisection of geek news and culture.
It's all in the Reflexes.
With the comedy rock geek Mikey Mason, the Brack of all trades Jeb Brack, Madison Metricula Roberts, and tech guy Steve.
It's all in the Reflexes.
I know, there's a problem with your face.
Hello and welcome to All in the Reflexes. I'm Jeb Brack.
I'm Madison Metricula Roberts.
And this is Tech Guy Steve.
And we got some announcements. Madison does at any rate. What do you got for us?
After Steve edits and uploads the episodes to our website and to our podcast feeds, I also take them and upload them to our YouTube channel. A link to that will be in the show notes, but it's just one more convenient way that you can enjoy and share All in the Reflexes.
And thank you for doing that. That's pretty cool.
No, thank you for doing all the legwork of the audio editing. It's easy to upload the MP3, so. And the other thing is I'm going to be appearing and performing at RavenCon in Williamsburg, Virginia, April 20th through 22nd. And actually on Saturday night at 10 p.m., I have an adults-only campfire sing-along show. So I haven't been doing as much of my raunchy material, but no holds barred. It's definitely after 10 p.m., 18 and up. Very excited. So
yeah, look, it says it's a science fiction and fantasy. Does it have a role-playing track or anything like that?
I'm not entirely sure. This is actually my first year at RavenCon.
Oh, okay.
They do usually have elements. They do have a gaming component. I don't know about the LARP situation, but they do have a game room offering tabletop RPGs as well as panels on science fiction, fantasy, science fiction, and pop culture media. So just kind of a nice. It has sort of a literary focus, but I think it's going to be a nice fun con. I think it's about 1,400 or 1,500 people.
Wow, that's a pretty good size. It says here that the author guest of honor is Chuck Wendig.
Yes.
I've got a couple books from him, and then the artist is Mark Klein. So
yeah, I was very excited about.
You're
Chuck
a good
Wendig,
company.
so.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm very flattered and I'm excited. They actually were able to kind of squeeze me in as a last minute appearance, so I'm really excited that it worked out, and I'm stoked. But
cool.
So,
well, let's move on to that is kind of personal, but let's move on to some personal updates. Once again, for the third year in a row, we're illustrators here in Cincinnati are holding the May the 4th Star Wars art show. When I hear what the date is going to be, I'll let you know. But I am going to be in it again with a couple of comical starships. They are a bow tie fighter and a necktie wing fighter. So doing battle. So those will be up for sale. I've seen some of the art that's up there. There's a woman who's doing scenes from the Star Wars movies that are no bigger than a couple of pennies.
whoa.
I mean, she's done these tiny little postage stamp size watercolor paintings. They're unbelievably cool. So they cost a little bit more than a penny, I think, but but that's okay. So if you happen to be in Cincinnati, starting the opening, of course, is May the 4th, but it's going to be up all month after that. So if you happen to be in Cincinnati, you can stop by the Brew House Bar and Grill, which is an excellent pub, and check out the Star Wars art that's on the walls. So there we go. Madison, with all of your busy stuff that's been going on, do you actually have any other updates?
Yeah, actually, I'll be brief, but I've been reading this book on the history of American animation, and it is fascinating. I have the title is Hollywood Cartoons and American Animation. Really, really cool. But the other actual super personal thing is I had a problem with my guitar buzzing. I have an acoustic electric guitar, and one of the strings was fuzzing out, and I was like, I bet it's the pickup. I bet it's the pickup. And I actually took out the saddle pickup and played with the little element in there, and I checked all of the wire connections in the preamp and stuff, and I jiggled everything and put it back together, and now it works. And I don't know what I did, but now it works, and I'm really excited that I didn't make it worse. So
Very good.
I've leveled up my guitar skill. So.
Steve, how about you?
My wife Lisa and I have been watching. I guess it's a limited series on AMC called The Terror, and it's based on a historical incident. It was the Lost Franklin expedition. It was 2 ships full of British explorers trying to find the Northwest Passage from the Atlantic over to the Pacific. They were hoping to open the trade route, by going north through the Arctic, which was doomed. Spoilers. It was a doomed expedition. First, they use so many area-appropriate, like slang terms and nautical terms, and they've got accents, and so we had to turn on closed captioning. And then second, we constantly are pausing it and looking stuff up on Wikipedia.
To find out how much of it's true, yeah.
Well, and even to know what these terms were. Some of the stuff they said I've never heard before. And so I'm learning all these weird, 1820s, whatever, 1840s language for, whatever, nautical stuff and insults and all this other crazy thing. And then some of the, again, like, the punishments and it's pretty wild. Everything in it seems to be very accurate, except they've implied without stating that there's kind of this, mystical polar bear wreaking revenge against the men and hunting them down.
It's a crossover with Lost.
Yeah, I mean, they have an explanation in the story for why, but I didn't see anything of that in the Wikipedia article. So.
I guess not.
But everything else, the years, the who found what, and the year this guy died is all chronicled in. There's scraps of information, found journal entries and stuff like that. They've slowly pieced it together. And the reason why this is a big news now that they finally found the ships in 2014.
Wow.
They've been lost for 150 years. Nobody could find even where the ships were.
Were the guys okay?
So amazing.
No, they're not okay. They're all lost. Yeah.
Lost.
Yeah, but I mean, they weren't on the ship. They'd already left. They had been landlocked in ice for over 18 months.
Sure.
And eventually, they abandoned the ships and tried to walk to the mainland Canada. And they have evidence that they got there. And then they had to walk down the coast of Canada for like 500 miles. They just didn't make it.
Yikes.
It just wasn't possible, yeah.
That's
but it's
brutal.
a fascinating show, well worth it. Great actors, really good to see. And you learn a ton about history, so.
Excellent.
Plus mystical bears.
All right.
I know, I'm really interested in that. There are no like human bear hybrids, right? It's just a mystical bear.
Well, they kind of imply that it's tied to this Eskimo
Inuit.
Shaman or something.
Inuit.
So.
Yeah, Inuit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny one. They say Eskimo, and they spell it with the French spelling. Like A-U-X.
Gotcha.
That's
to be like period kind of.
Yeah,
period appropriate, exactly.
Yeah.
But period appropriate closed captions. You only see the spelling in the closed captioning.
That's okay. I can work with that.
Well, since it's probably taken directly from the script, that's probably where it comes from.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like somebody is sitting there listening to it while you're watching it and typing it real quick. But anyway, sounds cool. Let us move on to the week's news.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
We do have a couple of people to note in passing in memoriam. The actor Oh Soon-taek, one of the first Korean actors to get national attention in the United States, has died at the age of 85. He was in the Broadway play of Rashomon in 1964. Got his start there, but he got his big break in the film The Man with the Golden Gun. He played Lieutenant Hip. Now he's one of those faces that, oh, that guy, sure.
That's my reaction too. I didn't know the name until I saw the photo, and I'm like, I've seen him all over TV back when I was growing up.
Yeah, that's right. I personally remember him because he was in MASH many times as many different people. Because, as one of the only Korean actors in Hollywood, it's like, let's get Soon-taek back. But anyway, most people know him now as the voice of the dad in Mulan. As Mulan's dad. So
a Disney animated movie.
Yeah, that's right. Another person to note, Mitzi Shore of The Comedy Store, died at age 87. She made comedy careers of people like Robin Williams, David Letterman, and Jay Leno. She got them on, and the Comedy Store was the place to be discovered. Yeah. She could also break your career if she didn't like you.
I just saw a documentary about Larry Shandling.
Yeah.
And he griped about her, that she had something against him trying to do like comedy writing and stand up, and he said that she held back his career because she had this kind of prejudice about writers can't be stand up and vice versa. Well, so she really had that power. One woman had the power, you know.
Well, sure. I mean, the comedy scene early in the 80s was centered around her venue. She also is known as the mother of Pauly Shore. So that's probably why he had a career, because it certainly wasn't his jokes. At any rate, let us move on to the other news, which is just about as weird as it gets. Madison.
Burps. I love birds. I love them. And I love puffins. I love their sweet little faces. And scientific breakthrough. Puffin beaks actually fluoresce under certain kinds of UV light, and we just didn't know. Which because
they never go to the good clubs.
That's right.
No, I was really thinking. It's like, man, we've never been beaks and skirts, and it's like they. So puffins are they're seabirds. A lot of them are found in like Ireland, like rocky kind of areas, rocky cold areas. But they are adorable, and they have these interesting beaks. They're these ridged, orange and black beaks. And there's an ornithologist that was studying them, and he was studying a related seabird that has a fluorescing beak. And he was like, I wonder if puffins do. And they just kind of stumbled on it, and it's like it's extremely fluorescent.
Yeah.
And they're not entirely sure why it's the certain ridges fluoresce more than others, and in different responsive colors. And they don't know if it's like why it's advantageous. Like we know that. So I keep a lot of budgies, like the little classic green parakeets, and their feathers actually also fluoresce, and they're not sure why, and they're not sure if it's like a mating thing. So I think it's really interesting that there's these whole host of animals that like, and they don't even know if the puffins really see the fluorescence in the same way that we interpret it. So it's a really interesting like cognitive thing. Like we know that like, or we assume that like, or we've done studies that like bees see color differently. Yep. So like the way the center of a flower fluoresces to a bee, but it's like what advantage? There's no apparent advantage with the puffins or with some of the birds. So
are we sure that it's all puffins? Because it could turn out to be that it's just the douchebag puffins who put ground effect lights on their faces.
Yeah. Or the sweet like Molly eating like rave puffins.
That's right.
Don't do drugs, but if you're a puffin, I guess it's fine.
They've been chewing on some Sialoom light sticks.
Oh, bless them. So, but mostly, and I think we'll link to to this article in the show notes. But the pictures are just adorable and really like reminiscent of 90s culture. So I'm super excited. It's a good intersection of things that I care about.
That's right. And another accidental but much grimmer discovery. First, I'm watching a YouTube channel, and they have a video called 6 Accidental Discoveries You've Probably Never Heard Of. And one of them mentions this newly discovered behavior of parasites. And so the actual story had to do with a researcher bringing in grasshoppers, and he wanted to see their stress reaction when faced with a type of lizard that eats grasshoppers. But inadvertently, the lizard was carrying some kind of grasshopper virus. So the grasshoppers die. When the researcher opens them up, their insides are blue. So he knows that this is, a virus. They died. But what he was interested in is they didn't act like sick grasshoppers. And then, so we've linked the YouTube video, but I went and looked up the scientific article, and I've linked that also if you're interested. And what he points out is that there's protective behaviors most animals, including grasshoppers, have when they get sick. They don't move as much. They move away from the nest or the hive or the whatever the group of animals, and they're quieter. They stop a whole series of behaviors. It's where they either get better, they can rejoin, or they die away from the herd. And the point of it, in part, was to protect the herd from infection. But these grasshoppers didn't act that way even while they were sick, and in fact, continued having sex.
No.
Yeah, and so it was interesting. They said part of the grasshopper mating is to rub antennas, and that was the transmission medium for the virus.
Oh, no.
And so what he showed was that this specific virus had evolved a way to circuit that protective behavior so that the host continues the risky behavior to spread the virus.
Wow.
And so he coined the term parasitic aphrodisiac. So the parasite elicits the behavior that will spread itself, and that behavior in this case is increased sexual activity, even while the hosts are becoming sicker and sicker.
Well, to paraphrase Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, death always finds a way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's intense.
I know. I've never heard of this before. It seems to be a brand new field. And I guarantee that they are going to find other disease vectors and parasites that do the same thing. That they found a way around these kind of so it's an arms race, right? An arms race between the host and the parasites. The host will develop or evolve behaviors to limit the spread of infection. So the parasite has to evolve a way to subvert that behavior.
Yeah. So if you're going to rub antennae, kids, make sure you practice safe antenna rubbing.
That's right. Or your insides will turn blue.
Yeah, that's right.
In other health news, talking about metaphorical blue insides, Mariah Carey has just come public with the fact...
Speaking of parasites.
Oh, no. Don't you diss our lady, Mariah.
Sorry.
I know you just did not do that. She actually just came forward about her battle with bipolar disorder publicly. It's something that has been circulating as like media rumors for a long time, that she's had problems or struggles with this. And also her own, in her own words, it's like, I didn't want to believe it. And I'm like, as someone who also struggles with mental health, I'm like, girl, 100% understand. So good for her. Mariah Carey has kind of had a somewhat tumultuous career.
Yeah.
But overall, I'd say a relatively positive media one, though someone who's under a lot of scrutiny. But
they blame some of the chaos to the mental illness.
I believe that.
Some of the extreme behavior may have been due to this. But she also said she didn't want to reach out for help because of her public standing. Mm-hmm. That could damage her career further. So she actually tried to keep it secret, which is a kind of a vicious trap, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like denying it to herself and to other people. So I do appreciate when celebrities in particular or famous people are open about their struggles with different kinds of mental illness and the ways that they've tried to treat that. Because one, it not excuses behavior, but I think a lot of times it gives people an opportunity to prevent triggering behaviors or behaviors that may escalate before they actually start when people are aware of it. And then also just as a layperson, like out in the world, it's like, oh, I don't feel so alone and crazy, you know?
Yes,
so, So good on Mariah Carey. Hope she finds treatment that brings her some balance.
And I'm sorry I called you a parasite before I heard the story. Now I feel like such a jerk.
It's okay. I mean, have we all seen Glitter?
No.
Oh, well.
No. And
I'll save that for another.
I did not see the Christmas special that she filmed here in Wyoming. So let's talk a little bit about everybody's favorite cameo actor, Stan Lee. This is the man who is the co-creator of Marvel and most of Marvel's big properties. And he makes an appearance in just about every, if not every, extended universe movie. Well, he's an old guy. That's kind of why it's cool to see him in the movies. But there's been a lot of concerns recently that he may be suffering from elder abuse by those closest to him. And so, in a gesture to let him know that there's help out there, Kevin Smith, the world's favorite stoner, offered on Twitter that Stan Lee could come and live with him to get out of a bad situation. I don't know that Stan Lee's going to take him up on it, but
no, almost certainly not.
But it brings awareness to the issue, whether or not there's something going on. And there's sort of this thing where it's like, it's none of your business, but at the same time, it's like, you know.
Well, if there's something
public figures.
Yeah, if there's something untoward going on, it kind of is. So, but at any rate, I think that the point is made that people are trying to look out for somebody that they care a lot about. So,
with Stan Lee, did you see that someone like was auctioning off comics that were signed by Stan Lee's Stolen Blood or something?
Oh.
No,
I did not see that.
Maybe I'll look for this link.
We led with the wrong story.
We can mention it later.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll bring it up maybe for later in the podcast or problem with your face. But
okay.
Stan Lee blood situation.
Okay.
Weird. Okay.
Gross.
FYI.
Yeah, FYI. So I was going to discuss a kind of a surprise hit at the box office. John Krasinski, who you may know from The Office, the American version, wrote, directed, and co-starred along with his real-life wife a small independent horror movie called A Quiet Place. Did fantastic. Number one at the box office, made over $50 million its first weekend. By now, it's already passed $59 million. So that was a huge success, and it's really good to see that he's had that success with that independent project. But he's also, based on that success, is jumped off to talk about the next one. So they said he's doing a sci-fi thriller called Life on Mars with the same team that he worked with on Quiet Place. So hopefully he'll bring to sci-fi kind of what he brought to this. Technically, I think Quiet Place is sci-fi. If I understood from the trailers, it's a kind of an alien invasion story. So,
all right, cool, very nice. Well, I wish him well. If it's a horror movie, I probably will not see it.
Yeah, I'll see it eventually. I didn't rush out to see it, but I'll see it on TV. Yeah.
So my kids growing up loved Mythbusters. If we would go on vacation, and we did not have cable, so if in the hotel they had cable, you could bet that part of our vacation would be spent watching a Mythbusters marathon. Well, Adam Savage, one of the hosts, is returning with a new spin-off of Mythbusters, Mythbusters Jr., in which young geniuses are going to help Adam Savage bust myths. So you're going to get some of that good myth-busting stuff back if you were into that at all. We went and saw Mythbusters live when they were touring several years ago. That was kind of cool. I still remember that. You guys Mythbusters fans at all?
I was
watched a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I have a coworker and his daughter was a huge fan. So they would do question and answer stuff, like go on tour and have Q&As. And so he would take her every time they were in the Boston area, and they got to ask these detailed questions about the show and the studios they had set up and the whole shot. So
cool.
Well, talking about shows and stuff, so I used to, and I still do, watch a lot of, so on YouTube there's like collectives of video producers that used to, before the YouTube algorithms particularly allowed fair use for media reviews in the way that they do now. A lot of these reviews, like Angry Video Game Nerd, Nostalgia Critic, some of those kinds of like early internet review pioneers would gather together on their own websites and host content there so that they could increase advertising revenue and stuff like that. So
sure.
one of these groups, Channel Awesome, the flagship show is Nostalgia Critic, but it's also had things like Todd in the Shadows, Nostalgia Chick, a whole host of different creators that kind of come and go. What's going on right now is there's been a document, like a 70-page Google document, circulating the internet that's collected grievances by current and former participants in the Channel Awesome business. And it is a business. I mean, they have revenue and sponsors and they pay money for things, right? And there are allegations of sexual misconduct, unprofessionalism, harassment, and most of it's directed at a particular small group of people with the way the company was run. But so there's a huge YouTube implosion about this. There's like lots of people doing like hot YouTube think pieces on it. But what I'm interested in is the fact that these kinds of aggregate websites don't have the same power that they used to have when before, like, a lot of these creators had access to things like Patreon and better ways to expose themselves through social media. Like, the climate online and YouTube is so much different than it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know? So a lot of these, like Channel Awesome originally like told a lot of its content creators not to put ads for their own Patreons in their videos if they wanted them hosted on the site and stuff like that. And so like there's kind of this this sense that the model is so different now, and combined with the unprofessionalism by some of the essential top brass, that it's imploding, and there's a lot of people gossiping about it. But a lot of content creators I really like Lindsay Ellis, she was formerly the Nostalgia chick, but she does like media reviews, and the woman that does the vampire reviews, love that, are Channel Awesome people, but they've been hemorrhaging creators over the last week because of this. So it's just kind of an interesting like intersection of these like, oh, it's YouTube, it's like fun amateur startup stuff, but then where it intersects with like actual business, and then people finding other models for their business that don't need the original organization. I don't know, it's an interesting thing to watch, and it's an interesting thing to think about in like how you build online communities and how they can survive.
Yeah,
I think things,
I think part of the irony is that a lot of these people got into that kind of business to get out of the kind of corporate structures. I don't want to work a stiff job in a office somewhere. But then the joke is when you're successful, you have to have that level of professionalism.
Yep.
So the kind of fly by your pants, it's all a bunch of friends, everything goes, absolutely does not work when you're leading an organization.
You have to have some structure or stuff like this is going to happen. Yeah. So it's really it's a very cautionary tale. So.
Well, good. That does it for the week's news. Let us move along and see if we cannot trash some trailers.
This will make for one epic trailer.
Okay, we've already covered the Solo Star Wars story trailer.
Right.
It looked terrible. I had zero interest. I had negative interest. Okay. But they released a new one. And I don't know, have you guys seen it?
I did. I watched it.
I watched it, yeah.
I am interested in seeing that movie.
Yes, they literally got me to flip.
Yeah, it's much more engaging.
I don't know how they did it, but they flipped my position 180 degrees.
Yeah, it's been a troubled production, so there may still be some problems there.
Problems.
But it looks like the kind of thing that I think about Han Solo in his youth. You know, he's a ne'er-do-well, he's a smuggler, he's a pirate. So
he's really out for himself, like even more so than.
Yeah.
You know, when he's an older adult, you know.
Yeah.
And they also had some poignant,
like 30 in the movie, but.
They had some poignant scenes where they talk about everybody will betray you, because we know how he ends, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that line has echoes, decades into the future.
So
this other trailer I thought was fascinating. I have heard rumors on and off for years that Terry Gilliam has tried to make a movie called The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Mm-hmm. They even made a documentary about it called Lost in La Mancha, which is about his failed attempt to make this movie.
Yep.
And he's been interviewed about it multiple times. He's saying the only reason why he keeps going is pure pig-headed stubbornness, that he wants this movie made. And to everyone's surprise, the trailer came out.
I know, right? And I didn't think that it looked like a must-see for me, but it did look kind of interesting. I mean, Jonathan Pryce as our titular hero, Adam Driver as Sancho Panza, but it looks like it's set in a more current time, a more modern time than.
So like Don Quixote thinks he's running around in whatever it was, the 1400s,
right?
But he's actually here in modern day Europe. It looks fascinating. It's got a great cast. Obviously, this has been a labor of love and endurance for Terry Gilliam, so I hope it actually makes it to a theater somewhere.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. And I've enjoyed Terry Gilliam's movies. I mean, they're always thought-provoking and have tons of stuff to wrap your mind around.
Right.
So, looking forward to when that comes out.
So I guess we didn't trash any trailers today.
No trash at all.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, we're actually pretty happy about these ones.
I saw another one, but we already had a full docket, so maybe next week we'll talk about The Meg. It's about a megalodon, as in prehistoric shark.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's a preview. Next week we'll talk about The Meg.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, wow.
What about you, Jeff? Do you have anything to review from Days of Yore?
This is your review? Well, you're late.
many, many years ago at the beach, I picked up a mystery novel about a guy named Travis McGee, who is sort of a detective, but really what he does is he's kind of a mercenary for hire. Is that he is taking his retirement in pieces as he can afford it. So he doesn't work. He lives on a houseboat in Fort Lauderdale, and then when somebody gets in trouble or gets something taken from them and they can't get it back by any legal means, they come to Travis, and he recovers what he can and then splits it down the middle with the person he got it back for. That's his shtick. If he makes an impossible recovery, he eats the expenses, and then they split the recovery half and half. It's full of James Bond kind of wish fulfillment things, that he is very strong, very fast. He's great with guns. He's really clever. He is handsome as all get out. He has a way with the ladies at least twice in every book. And of course he lives as a bachelor on this houseboat, living life exactly the way he wants to. Now, this series started in the early 60s, right? So I read that first book. There's 21 of them because they ran through 1984. They're by John D. MacDonald, and they are one of the first thriller or detective series to have a theme running through the titles. He was one of the first people to ever do that, and his are colors. So the very first one is The Deep Blue Goodbye. And then I think the last one is The Lonely Silver Rain. And then there's all these colors in between. But in every one of them, Travis goes on a hunt for some Don Quixote-like thing where he's tilting at windmills. He runs into terrible danger. He sleeps with beautiful women. And he almost always gets the money back. So since they started in the early 60s, they're pretty dated. The early ones seem kind of dated, especially when they refer to things like fashion, right? But they're also at the same time curiously timeless. There's no cell phones. Only in the later ones do they even mention computers. But the things that they are saying about life, because he's also a philosopher of sorts, the things that he says about life really still pertain today. When he talks about environmentalism, John MacDonald was one of the first people to talk about environmentalism in Florida. And that's still going on, man. So, at the same time, if you read all of these books, like I have multiple times, and the reason I bring it up now is because every time I dip into one, I have to then go and read all of them. There's just,
wow.
There's just no, but since I've read them so much, I can skip over the philosophizing parts and just get to the action. But they are just really kind of curiously compelling. It's the 60s in the early ones, so there's a lot of sexism,
Sure.
But at the same time, McGee is a rare hero who is oddly respectful of every person deserving of respect, whether they're women, minorities, other men, whatever. He respects them as long as they are deserving of that respect. And of course, because he's the hero, he somehow senses if they're deserving of respect. He can, he can sniff out if you're a good person or a bad one.
He has a magic like radar.
Yeah. So I would say that if you're going to dip into these, if you haven't read them, I think you give them a try because they're pretty quick. They're slim novels. They don't take very long to get through, and treat them kind of as
capsule, maybe
time capsule. I was going to say male romance novels. That it's
like kind of adventure novel, detective novel,
right. Right,
yeah.
Exactly right. And he's a very clever detective, so the detective part is really well plotted. It's always really, really cool. But like I said, you're going to find stuff in it where it's just like, does that really pass today? But I still love them even after all this time of that first one back in the early 90s. And they had all been written by then. I've bought them all twice. I bought them all on paperback, and then I bought them all on Kindle so I could get rid of the paperbacks because they took up too much space.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, Travis McGee, thrillers by John D. MacDonald. If you haven't read them, give them a try. If you enjoy detective fiction, and if you can, get around the kind of chauvinism of it all, I think you'll enjoy them. So there we go.
Yeah, that really sounds like you'd give a very similar review if you're reading all the James Bond novels.
Yes.
I was just thinking it was like very James Bondy sounding.
For both sides, right?
Although James Bond is much more misogynist, and always has been, Travis McGee is a lover of women.
One of those nice guys. Right?
Yeah, he is the nice guy. He sees a woman in distress, he is there to help out. But then, he goes on and on about how he's going to rebuild this broken woman. Yeah. And that gets
kind of a proto Dresden Files style to that too, like a male detective thing.
Could be, but if you read them all, you become enamored of all the things in his life. His houseboat, the busted flush, has an entire backstory. It has little hidey holes in it that where he stows his guns, or he has a hidden chamber where he can hide behind it if people sneak onto his boat. Whenever you step onto it, it brings a little alarm in his bedroom because he doesn't like being surprised. He drives a 1920s Rolls Royce that has been converted into an electric blue pickup truck, and he calls it Miss Agnes. and so it's just all these, he's got an entire history throughout the whole thing, and it's totally consistent. I won't say that. Not always totally consistent, but but
there is a mythos. He has built up a mythos.
Yeah, exactly right. In fact, I will tell you that Slip F-18 at Bahia Mar Marina in Fort Lauderdale, where he was supposedly moored for all those books, was the first literary landmark that was ever created by the United States. And so there was a sign at Slip F-18 that said, "This is where Travis McGee used to moor the busted flush." And then it explained about the series. So he had an impact. I mean, it is definitely a formative series that a lot of detective novels draw on. Like I said, give it a try. And if you absolutely can't stand the tone of them and the chauvinism of them, then okay, I totally get that. But I still cannot turn away from these books. I cannot put them down. So there you go.
Cool.
That sounds fun.
Madison, how about you? Budget bin games.
Big fun.
Small price.
Oh, I have been having fun. So listen, this is a game I've actually reviewed before, and it's kind of outside of my normal, what I shoot for and my parameters on a couple points. One, it's a game I've reviewed before, and two, it's actually over $10. It retails for about $15, and usually I try to keep it 10 or under or free.
Yeah, what's budget about that? Whoa.
Well, I've been consistently playing Stardew Valley basically all year, and Stardew Valley is a farming life simulator game. It's very similar to Harvest Moon on the NES systems. Which is like you farm your little plot and you have a town where you interact and you can do this stuff. But what I wanted to mention, and I've reviewed this before, and it's an excellent game. It has excellent replay mechanics. It has a relatively deep storyline for such a pixelated looking kind of farm sim. But what I've gotten into is mods. I've gotten into modding this game. But just brief stats. It came out originally in 2016 from Concerned Ape as the developer and Chucklefish as the distributor. It's available now on PC, Mac, Linux, PS4, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. And it often appears in Humble Bundles for a discount. So it's a super game. And actually, in about a month, they're releasing a multiplayer mode. So this is a great time to start playing. But I've discovered the mods for the game. So most of the art is pixelated sprites. So it's actually fairly easy to modify the game files yourself, either creating new art and dropping it in, or using mods that other people have created. So I just wanted to highlight, that I turned all of my animals into Pokemon, and it's great. I turned my horse into a rainbow unicorn. I live in a little mushroom house with like fairies around it, and it is just amazing. I turned the spa to the north of town into like a Japanese style hot springs. I'm mostly using art mods. They also have like mechanics mods that kind of change the gameplay, but you can use those to have new challenges for yourself, or people use them to sort of expand sandbox gameplay. And there's several really interesting YouTube channels that I watch a lot of where people use these gameplay mechanic mods and cheat mods, not necessarily to cheat to finish the game, because there's no real finish to the game.
Okay.
But to try different challenges, like how fast can I make 1,000,000 gold? Or what if I made an entire farm that was just like beets, like a whole, just all beets? Like how much would it be if I just had all beets? Or my whole farm is gonna be hundreds of pigs. And the pigs, you don't butcher the animals in the game. You don't butcher them, but
they commit suicide.
No. The pigs, they don't drop bacon. They they find truffles for you.
Oh, okay.
And the goats and cows give milk. The sheep provide wool. I've actually I changed some of my animals into Pokemon and some of them into alpaca. But my house cat is now an Umbreon. And I've redone the whole color palette. But what's really cool about this, if you are at all interested in learning how to either modify games or create art to modify games yourself, Stardew Valley is an excellent game to start with. It's available DRM free for PC, Mac, and Linux, and it has similar systems to modify it, and it has cloud save through an XML file, so you can play it on a Mac or a PC. As long as you have that file synced, you can transfer it depending on whatever platform you're on. It's super cool. This is if you are interested at all in beginner game modification, this is a great place to start. It's easy to implement, it's easy to see the changes, and it's easy to implement without breaking the game. Plus, it's just pixelated sprites, so you can recolor any of the existing templates and drop them back into the game. So I just think that is so cool. I've also logged, it's $15, but it has so much replayability. I've logged almost 300 hours now. I'm at 284 hours over the last couple years because it's so incredibly charming. It's so engaging. It's addictive without giving you that like stressful time pressure because you can achieve any of the goals at any point, but it doesn't feel like you don't have goals. It's extremely well designed. I cannot say enough good things about it. And I really think everyone should play it. It's appropriate for
all ages. All ages,
yeah. I mean, there's some heavier themes as you get in, but nothing that would be objectionable for someone that's like 8 or 10 up. I mean, which most kids that age probably aren't going to be playing things without some parental supervision anyway.
You would hope.
There's some kissing in the game, and you can get married and have babies. And I know it's so good. But anyway, so Stardew Valley, I know I've reviewed it before, but the mods just make it like a whole new game, both in look and feel and gameplay, and it's really fun to like do these like little wacky challenges, like how many diamonds can I get in a day, you know? So
awesome.
Definite buy it.
Steve, weird anime.
スティーブはとってもくだらない人でアニメを見るんです。What weird anime is Steve watching this week?
I've got two. One is a strong recommend. One is a The first one I can strongly recommend is called A Place Further Than the Universe. It's nothing on supernatural or out of the ordinary. It's 4 high school girls who become friends while they strive to join the first civilian expedition to the Antarctic that's been allowed in 3 years. And it's to do with a tragedy and, of perseverance and this sense of wonder and exploration. And it's It is a fantastic series.
Plus, you get to learn all sorts of nautical terms and lots of insults, and then they get trapped in the ice for 18 months and they eat each other.
And there's a polar bear.
Yeah.
None of that stuff. This is the Antarctic. Yeah, polar bears, but there are penguins.
Rabid penguins.
On the other hand, it is extremely realistic. Whoever created this either went to the Antarctic themselves or did enormous amounts of research. They talk about taking the flights from Tokyo to Australia, where you actually get on the ship, all the training and the navigating, everything you have to do to qualify, the way that the civilian expeditions work and how the funding works. And I'm telling you, there's an immense amount of realism in this show, way more than I expected from an anime. And the thing I liked best, besides the fact that it's a fantastic character story, you really care about the young women, you want them to succeed against all odds, but it recalls back an age of like wonder at exploring the world that you don't really see that much anymore, because the world feels very, explored. Everything's been done. So when these young women say that we're going to go to Antarctica, everyone tells them it's just not possible. And then they end up finding a way to do it. It just is really a fantastic story. So
cool.
I highly recommend it. The other one I started and finished. Both of these series were about the 13 episodes. So the second one is called Citrus, and it's what's it? It's girls kissing. So it's kind of like this lesbian theme about girls in love and
but it
high
gets
school
so
girls
much
in love.
better.
Yeah, except that they're stepsisters. Except that they're stepsisters who just met for the first time as juniors in high school. The setup is pretty ridiculous. This girl has a daughter of a single mother. Her father's dead, and she finds out that her mother just got married. And so it's like, I just got married and we're moving across town to a brand new place, and I've enrolled you in a new high school. And I'm like, she never even meets her stepfather.
Surprise!
Like, apparently he got married and immediately went on an international trip. Okay.
Yeah, and the mom's like, oh, well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
and then,
all right.
Yeah, then the girl goes to the high school, and it's like, oh, I didn't tell you, this is a super strict girls-only high school with a strict dress code and a strict enforcer of a class president. And then she gets home, and her mother's like, I'm so happy both of my girls will be here. And she's like, Mom, what are you talking about, both your girls? Oh, I didn't mention you have a stepsister? Here's your stepsister, who also happens to be the class president.
Jazz hand surprise.
Yes. And so the level of, like, that's not how humans actually work is really high. But the story is more compelling than I expected. You're really rooting for the main character, Yuzu. But then you're thinking, should I root for her? Is that appropriate to root for her to profess her love to her half-sister who she just met? Or, I'm sorry, step-sister. I could be very technical here.
Yeah, like, it's not the... Yeah.
Yeah, like, and then the other part that really was disturbing was how sexually aggressive some of these girls are.
Like, that's like some straight up assault. Like, even as a woman watching it, and it's too much. It's like, it was a lot.
Exactly. So if a male character did that, it would be treated very differently in anime. And these girls are like shoving each other down and holding their arms down and kissing. It doesn't really get beyond kissing. They have some salty talk about this or that, but the only thing you actually see is, kissing.
It's
a lot of flushed cheeks, a lot of heavy breathing, that sort of thing. But
just because they like it doesn't make it assault. It does change it because it makes it more like the old school romance novel trope used to be like, oh, I will take you and you will like it, like power reassurance rate. And that's actually changed.
He grabbed her heaving shoulders.
Right, yeah, and it's changed. It's changed in the last 10 years to be more like, instead of like...
Politely, he asked her total consent.
Yeah, like they fetishize consent in a different way. So instead of like a rape fantasy or assault fantasy sort of situation, it's more like a ravishment thing where it's like, no, I will not touch you until you truly desire my tiny, my delicate touch. It's very much more like that, where it's like there's more.
So explicit. You saw Citrus?
Yeah, I saw the first couple episodes.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it. I want to watch more of it because I do kind of like the characters, even though they're kind of awful, and the whole situation is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah. I'm going to talk about it a little bit further, and there's a problem with your face, because some of the subject I need to be able to take off the training wheels and the inhibitions. And,
Okay. I'm very excited to hear this.
Yeah, I think it's rated like TV PG or something. It doesn't get beyond saucy talk and some kissing. But you know, then there's this
matters.
Well, let us
Right.
let us do this because we are already
Oh my
way
God.
over.
turning this into a long episode. So why don't we just head straight over to There's a Problem with Your Face and continue the conversation. If you want to follow us, Steve, tell them how they can do that.
Go to our website, aitrpodcast.com. Find links to all of our show notes, including the game that Madison reviews, and the anime that I just mentioned, including the one I actually recommend, which is A Place Further in the Universe. But also our social media links and Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get twice the content and all the saucy talk I'm saving up.
So join us over there for the saucy talk. In the meantime, I'm Jeb Brack.
I'm Madison Metricula Roberts. I'm sorry, I was swallowing.
And this is Tech Guy Steve.
And we'll talk saucy at you later.